Lisa and I have been together for just over 5 years, engaged for the last 8 months. We met through mutual friends at a housewarming party, just two people hitting it off over a shared hatred of IPAs and a love for 90s cartoons. Our relationship progressed at a comfortable pace, dating for a year, moving in together after 2, adopting our cat Beans at 3, and getting engaged last summer. The proposal wasn't extravagant, just a Saturday morning hike to our favorite lookout point, where I nervously fumbled the ring box out of my pocket. She said yes immediately. We set the date for this October and have been slowly planning everything. Well, mostly her planning while I nodded along. About 3 months ago, Lisa started making odd comments when we discussed wedding plans. Nothing outright negative, just hesitant. When I showed her potential venues, she'd say things like, "That's a lot of money for just one day," or "Do we really need to invite all those people?" I brushed it off as typical pre-wedding worries or budget concerns. Then came the delayed responses to my texts about wedding stuff. I'd send her options for caterers, and she'd reply hours later with just, "Looks fine," or "Whatever you want." When I asked if everything was okay, she'd say she was just busy at work. Her construction company had taken on some big projects, and it made sense. Last month, she started going out more with her work friend Paula. They'd grab drinks after work or watch games at Paula's place. Again, nothing unusual, just more frequent than before. When she'd come home, she seemed distant, checking her phone more often and being less affectionate. I tried talking to my best friend Leo about it, and he suggested pre-wedding jitters, recommending we have a date night to reconnect. So last Friday, I made reservations at this new Italian place downtown, put on a nice dress shirt. Not too fancy, just something I hadn't worn in a while, and even bought Lisa's favorite wine to have waiting in the fridge. The date night was a disaster. She seemed distracted throughout dinner, barely engaging in conversation. When I brought up finalizing our honeymoon plans, she dropped the bomb. She wasn't sure if she was ready for all this. Not just the honeymoon, but the wedding, marriage, everything. I was stunned. 5 years together, 8 months engaged, and now she wasn't sure? When I pressed her, she mentioned conversations with Paula about how marriage changes things and referenced Paula's brother's messy divorce. The discussion quickly escalated, with me trying not to cause a scene in the restaurant while feeling like my world was collapsing. We barely touched our entrees. The ride home was silent, thick with tension. At our apartment, she deflected further conversation, saying she needed time to think before sleeping on the couch. The next morning was painfully awkward. We moved around each other like strangers sharing an Airbnb. She mentioned meeting Paula and some work friends for lunch to watch the game at the Rusty Nail, the sports bar downtown. I was too emotionally drained to argue. A few hours later, Leo called and convinced me to get out of the apartment. We went for coffee, and I unloaded everything. Leo listened patiently, suggesting that maybe Lisa was just experiencing normal pre-wedding anxiety. After coffee, we wandered around Target aimlessly, my usual stress relief activity. By early evening, I felt calmer and decided to head home. I was pulling into our apartment complex when I got a text from Kyle, one of Lisa's coworkers I had met at the company Christmas party. The message asked if I was okay, mentioning that things got weird at the Rusty Nail. Instead of texting back, I called him. He sounded uncomfortable, initially reluctant to share details. With some pressing, he finally revealed what happened. The girls had been giving Lisa a hard time about wedding planning, and when Paula asked if she was ready to be with one man forever, Lisa expressed doubts about the wedding timing. When Paula asked what was holding her back, Lisa, who was apparently drunk, said something like, "If you were hotter, I'd be more excited about marrying you." Then she laughed it off like it was a joke. Kyle told me that he and some of the other girls called Lisa out for the comment, but Lisa just got defensive and said they couldn't take a joke. I sat in my car and fumed and cursed for 20 minutes after that call. The woman I had loved for 5 years, who I thought loved me, had publicly joked about my appearance being the reason she was hesitant to marry me. When I finally went inside, Lisa was passed out on the couch, still in her clothes from earlier. The apartment smelled like stale beer. I took Beans into the bedroom with me and locked the door. Sunday morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon, Lisa's standard apology breakfast. She looked hungover and sheepish, clearly hoping food would smooth things over. When I confronted her about what Kyle had told me, her face fell. She immediately tried to downplay it, claiming she was drunk and being stupid. According to her, the girls were ragging on her about being tied down, and she said something dumb to shut them up. Her defense of girls being girls only made things worse. We argued about how she could humiliate me in front of her friends, with her insisting that wasn't her intention. She tried to explain that she was stressed about wedding costs and pressure, but I couldn't get past the fact that she had used my appearance as the punchline to a cruel joke. I couldn't stay in the apartment with her. I grabbed my keys and headed for Ellie's place. My sister has always been my safe harbor during rough times. When I told her what happened, she was furious, ready to confront Lisa directly. I managed to calm her down, explaining that I just needed space and a place to stay while figuring things out. Throughout Sunday, Lisa kept texting apologies and pleading for me to come home and talk. I responded only once, saying I needed time. I called in sick to work on Monday, unable to focus on marketing campaigns while pretending everything was fine. Around 9 a.m. Monday morning, I got a call from Victor, Lisa's dad. We've always gotten along well. He's been more supportive of our relationship than my own father, who lives in Florida with wife number 3. Victor sounded upset, saying Lisa had called him the night before and that there was something important I needed to know. He asked if we could meet somewhere to talk. And that's where I am now, sitting in my car outside the coffee shop where I'm supposed to meet Victor in 15 minutes, wondering what else there could possibly be to know and if my 5-year relationship is completely over. I never thought I'd be in this situation. I keep looking at my engagement ring, wondering if I should have seen this coming. Was I blind? Or did things really change this suddenly? Should I hear Victor out? What could he possibly tell me that would make any of this okay? Monday, I called in sick to work again. My boss was understanding. I'd only used 2 sick days in the past year, and apparently, I sounded like death on the phone. I spent most of the morning in Emily's spare room/storage closet, scrolling through messages and trying to gather my thoughts. Around noon, Lucas came over on his lunch break with sandwiches from that deli near the hospital where he works. I hadn't eaten much since Sunday, so even though I wasn't hungry, I forced myself to take a few bites. Lucas gently reminded me that I couldn't avoid Lisa forever. We lived together, had joint accounts, and eventually, we need to talk. He was right, obviously. I couldn't hide at my sister's place indefinitely, especially since Emily's boyfriend was coming over for dinner that night. The last thing I wanted was to be the sad third wheel at their Taco Tuesday. After Lucas left, I took a shower, borrowed one of Emily's hoodies, don't judge, it was comforting, and drove back to my apartment. The whole way there, I rehearsed what I wanted to say. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to be calm and mature and get answers. When I pulled into our parking spot, I noticed Lisa's car was there. She should have been at work. My stomach knotted as I walked up the stairs to our second-floor unit. I unlocked the door to find her on the couch in sweats, looking like she hadn't slept, surrounded by wedding planning binders that she had put together over the last 8 months. Max was curled up next to her, the little traitor. She seemed surprised and relieved to see me. When I asked why she wasn't at work, she mentioned taking personal time. She had apparently been looking through all the wedding plans, trying to figure out how she messed up so badly. I remained standing by the door, not ready to sit next to her, and told her that looking at wedding plans wasn't going to fix what she'd said. What followed was a long, difficult conversation. She apologized again for the bar comment, calling it inexcusable and claiming she didn't even believe it. When I asked why she would say something she didn't believe, she explained that she was trying to look cool in front of her friends, a response that only made me angrier. I brought up her comments at dinner before the bar incident, reminding her that she had expressed doubts about our wedding even when sober. She admitted to feeling stressed about multiple things, a work project falling behind schedule, Megan's constant marriage horror stories, and anxiety about our wedding budget. But instead of talking to me about these concerns, she bottled everything up until it exploded in the worst possible way. As our conversation progressed, she revealed something new: fears about turning into her mother. Lisa rarely talked about her mom, who left when she was 12 after having an affair with a coworker and moving to Arizona to start a new family. Although Lisa had always insisted it didn't affect her much, she now confessed that she worried about having some genetic predisposition to cheat or abandon her family. I pointed out that she wasn't her mother and that genetics don't determine relationship choices. Her response was telling. She wondered if she could really promise forever when forever seemed so impossible based on what she'd witnessed growing up. When I asked if she had discussed these fears with anyone else, she hesitated before admitting she'd been talking to Lucas sometimes. Apparently, they had gotten closer since Lucas joined the company, and he had gone through some relationship stuff too. I connected this to why Lucas had called me about the bar incident. He already knew about Lisa's doubts. The conversation took another difficult turn when I asked exactly what Lisa had been feeling. Her answer was painfully honest, scared, overwhelmed, and uncertain about marriage despite loving me. She explained that she kept thinking about how her parents seemed happy until suddenly they weren't, and she feared creating the same situation with us. I asked why she hadn't shared these feelings sooner. She claimed she was afraid I'd think she didn't love me enough. The irony wasn't lost on me. By hiding her fears, she had created exactly the situation she was trying to avoid. When I questioned whether her joke about my appearance came from a real place of unattraction, she insisted she had always found me attractive. She referenced our first meeting at the housewarming party, mentioning specific details about my navy sweater and her terrible beer pong skills. According to her, the comment came from insecurity and a misguided attempt to seem in control in front of her friends rather than appearing trapped. As we continued talking, I asked a crucial question: were her doubts about marriage in general, or about marrying me specifically? Her hesitation before answering told me everything. She finally admitted that while her fears were primarily about marriage and commitment, part of her wondered if we were right for each other long-term. That hurt more than the comment about my appearance. 5 years together, and she was still wondering if we were right for each other? When I pressed for specifics, she mentioned how we had both changed since our early 20s, my increased need for planning versus my former spontaneity, her abandoned dreams of starting her own business. Although I pointed out that growth and change are normal in relationships, she questioned whether we had grown together or apart. By this point, I felt emotionally drained. I told her I needed time away to process everything: her public humiliation of me, her hidden doubts, and now her uncertainty about our compatibility. She pleaded for us to work through it together, offering to try therapy or couples counseling, but I remained firm about needing space. As I was about to pack more clothes, she mentioned that my phone had been buzzing. I checked and saw 3 missed calls from Victor. With everything happening, I had completely forgotten our planned coffee meeting. When I mentioned this to Lisa, her expression changed from confusion to concern. She asked what my dad wanted to talk about, and I explained that he had called crying the previous morning, saying he needed to discuss something important after Lisa's Sunday night call to him. Her reaction was telling. The color drained from her face, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. When I asked what she had told him, she vaguely mentioned their fight and her doubts, but her evasiveness made me suspicious. When I pressed further, she said it wasn't her place to explain and suggested I should hear whatever it was from my dad directly. I stepped away to call Victor back. He answered immediately, concerned that I hadn't shown up for our meeting. I explained that I was at the apartment talking with Lisa. His voice sounded strange when I mentioned being with her, further increasing my suspicion that there was something significant I didn't know. After arranging to meet Victor in 30 minutes, I confronted Lisa again, asking what my father knew that I didn't. She finally looked up, her expression a mix of guilt and resignation. She said there was something she should have told me himself and suggested I talk to my dad, offering to be gone when I returned if that's what I wanted. I quickly packed enough clothes for a week, along with toiletries and my laptop. At the door, Lisa said she loved me, but I responded that sometimes love isn't enough. On my way to meet Victor, Marcus, Lisa's brother, called. He was clearly concerned, asking what was happening between Lisa and me. He mentioned hearing from Paula about the bar incident and noted that Lisa wasn't answering his texts, while their mom seemed upset. When I explained that I was heading to meet Victor, Marcus seemed surprised and asked if the meeting was about Mark. The name hit me like a truck. What about Mark? I asked. Marcus's shocked reaction and quick backpedaling told me he had accidentally revealed something important. He apologized and urged me to hear Victor out, refusing to explain further despite my pressing. As I pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, I spotted Victor already waiting at a table by the window. His eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. Whatever he was about to tell me, I had a feeling it was going to change everything. My phone buzzed with a text as I walked toward his table. It was from Lisa. Whatever my dad tells you, please remember that I do love you. I just got scared and made terrible mistakes. I'll understand if you can't forgive me. I put my phone away, took a deep breath, and sat down across from Victor. After meeting with Victor yesterday, I couldn't face going back to Lisa's or our apartment. Mark has a pull-out couch that's slightly more comfortable than Lisa's storage room futon. Plus, his cat, Pepper, doesn't judge me for crying into my cereal at 2 a.m. So, the meeting with Victor, where do I even start? The coffee shop was busy for a Tuesday afternoon. Some local community college had just let out classes, and students with laptops occupied most tables. Victor had managed to snag a corner booth, the kind with high backs that create at least the illusion of privacy. He looked different than the last time I'd seen him at our monthly family dinner 3 weeks ago. His usually perfect haircut was slightly disheveled, and he wasn't wearing his usual polished look. In the 5 years I've known him, I've never seen Victor without at least a pressed shirt and a confident posture. He's not vain, it's just his routine, like how some people can't start their day without coffee. When I arrived, he stood to hug me. He smelled like those lavender dryer sheets he always uses. I ordered a black coffee, even though what I really wanted was one of those caramel things with extra whipped cream. Somehow, it felt wrong to order something frivolous for this conversation. After some awkward small talk, Victor got to the point. Lisa had called him Sunday night in a complete emotional meltdown. While he acknowledged that her fears about commitment and turning into her mother were real, there was something much more immediate causing her behavior. Mark. I nearly choked on my coffee. Mark, the new project coordinator at Lisa's company. The man she had mentioned a few times in passing. As Victor explained, While nervously shredding a napkin into tiny pieces, Lisa had developed feelings for Mark over the past few months. Nothing physical had happened, at least according to what Lisa told her father, but there was an emotional connection that had her questioning everything about our relationship. I sat there, trying to process this information, feeling like the coffee shop was tilting sideways. While Victor continued talking, I was mentally connecting dots, building a timeline. Mark had started at Lisa's company around New Year's. I'd met him briefly at the company holiday party in March. By then, Lisa had already been acting different, more distant, checking her phone constantly, spending more time with work friends. What I'd written off as stress from her big project now looked like something else entirely. When I asked Victor why he was telling me this instead of protecting his daughter, his eyes welled up. The parallel to his own marriage breakdown became clear as he shared more details. Before Lisa's mother left for Arizona with her coworker, there had been months of distance, hurtful comments, and manufactured arguments, all designed to create space rather than admit the truth. He didn't want to see history repeat itself, with me left in the dark while Lisa took the coward's way out. The comment at the bar suddenly made more sense, not just drunken stupidity, but a subconscious attempt to sabotage our relationship so she wouldn't have to make the hard choice herself. We talked for over an hour. Victor shared more about his own experience, how he'd tried to save his marriage even after learning about the affair, how he blamed himself for not being enough. Before we parted ways in the parking lot, he said something that's been echoing in my head ever since. The hardest lesson I learned was that you can't make someone choose you. They either do, or they don't. And anything in between is just delaying the inevitable. I sat in my car for a long time afterward, staring at my phone. There were 3 new texts from Lisa, all variations of "I'm sorry" and "I love you," but not a single mention of Mark, still hiding the full truth. Instead of responding to her, I called Mark and asked if I could crash at his place. He didn't hesitate or ask questions, just said he was already making up the pull-out couch and offered to pick up dinner on his way home. That's the kind of friend everyone deserves during a crisis. I finally texted Lisa back. "I know about Mark. Don't contact me again until you're ready to tell me the complete truth. I'll be collecting more of my things tomorrow while you're at work." Then I blocked her number, not permanently, just for the night. I needed space to think without her explanations or justifications. On the drive to Mark's, Chris called. The conversation confirmed what Victor had told me and added another layer. He had overheard Lisa and Paula discussing the situation last Thursday. He'd confronted his sister and made her promise to be honest with me after the weekend. Clearly, she had failed to follow through on that promise. What surprised me most was Chris's unwavering support. Despite being Lisa's brother, he made it clear he was on my side in the situation. The relief I felt was enormous. I'd been worried about losing not just Lisa, but her entire family, who had become my family over the years. Mark's apartment was exactly what I needed that night, a neutral space where I could just exist without explaining myself. We ate food on his living room floor, his coffee table covered with papers from his online class. While watching a baking competition, neither of us really following it, the mundane normality of it felt like a life preserver in the middle of my emotional storm. After Mark went to bed, I stayed up scrolling through photos on my phone, 5 years of memories with Lisa. Vacations, holidays, random selfies on ordinary days. Our engagement photos showed us grinning like we'd won the lottery. I was making mental plans for the next day, going to the apartment while Lisa was at work, packing more things, maybe talking to the landlord about breaking our lease, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Nick, this is Mark. I know you blocked Lisa. Can we meet tomorrow? There's more to the story that you should know. Just the 2 of us." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart pounding. What more could there possibly be? And why would this guy want to tell me directly? After what felt like an hour, but was probably only minutes, I typed a response. Where and when? The meeting with Mark happened, and it went nothing like I expected. We met at this little breakfast place near the park, neutral territory, I guess. When I arrived, he was already there, nervously scrolling through his phone. He looked different than I remembered from the company party, less polished, more human somehow. His hair was slightly disheveled, and he wore a plain hoodie instead of the usual button-up I'd seen him in before. What surprised me immediately was how uncomfortable he seemed. If he'd been having some secret emotional affair with my fiancée, shouldn't he have been more confident? Instead, he kept fidgeting with his coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. The conversation revealed 2 major bombshells. First, Mark had no idea Lisa had developed feelings for him until Chris mentioned it casually last week. According to him, he and Lisa had worked closely on a project, occasionally texting about work after hours, but nothing that crossed any lines. From his perspective, he'd never flirted with her or encouraged anything beyond friendship. He even showed me their text history, mostly work-related messages, occasional memes, nothing romantic or inappropriate. He also had a girlfriend of 3 years, who sometimes joined their group for happy hours. The second revelation was about Chris. Apparently, he had been deliberately stirring things up. Mark had overheard him at work, encouraging Lisa to explore her options before settling down, specifically mentioning him as someone who gets Lisa better than I do. He explained that Chris had been telling everyone at work that Lisa was having cold feet about the wedding, making jokes about her being trapped and missing out on her freedom. By the end of our meeting, I felt strangely calm. Mark wasn't the villain I'd imagined. He was just a bystander caught in manipulation and Lisa's weakness. Before we parted ways, he said something that stuck with me. "You seem like someone who knows their worth. Don't let anyone make you question it." I left that meeting with a new perspective and a plan. This wasn't just about Lisa and me anymore. It was about Chris's toxic influence, Lisa's family history, and where I fit into all of it. I texted Kyle afterward, asking if he'd help arrange a family meeting at his apartment, neutral territory, since I wasn't ready to be alone with Lisa yet. He agreed immediately. That brings me to yesterday's dinner. Kyle had set everything up in his small but cozy apartment. He'd ordered food from that Italian place near his building, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. Victor arrived first, then Chris, Kyle had insisted he attend, and finally Lisa, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. The first 20 minutes were excruciating. We all sat around Kyle's dining table, pushing pasta around our plates, making strange small talk about the weather and Kyle's new coffee table. The elephant in the room was practically stealing food off our plates, but no one wanted to be the first to acknowledge it. Finally, Victor broke the silence by stating bluntly that we weren't there for a social gathering, but to address what had been happening and find a way forward. That opened the floodgates. I shared what I'd learned from Mark, watching Chris's face carefully as I spoke. The way his expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness told me everything. He tried to interrupt, claiming he was just looking out for his friend, but Kyle shut him down immediately. Lisa mostly sat in silence, staring at her barely touched pasta. When directly addressed, she admitted that Mark had just been friendly, but she had built it into something else because she was scared of turning into her mom. Victor visibly flinched at that comment. When I brought up the joke at the bar, Lisa looked genuinely ashamed. She admitted it had nothing to do with Mark, it was just her being a coward. Chris was giving her a hard time about being whipped, and instead of standing up for our relationship, she'd said something horrible to seem cool. According to Lisa, it was never about my looks. Chris tried to dismiss it all as just sibling talk, but Kyle reminded everyone that Lisa and I were supposed to get married in 3 months. That simple statement, the reminder of our rapidly approaching wedding date, hit me like a physical blow. The save the dates had gone out, deposits had been paid, my suit was hanging in Lena's spare closet, waiting for final alterations. That's when I quietly said I didn't think the wedding was happening anymore. The room went silent. Lisa started to protest, but I cut her off. I explained how I'd spent the last week trying to understand how we got here. What I'd realized was that this wasn't just about Mark, or that joke, or even Chris's toxic influence. This was about Lisa not being honest, with me or herself. I told them how I'd ignored the signs for months. Her disinterest in wedding planning, her increased time with Chris, her emotional distance. I'd made excuses because it was easier than confronting the truth. But I deserved someone who was certain about me, someone who didn't need a family intervention to figure out their feelings. Chris made a snarky comment about me being dramatic, which earned him simultaneous, "shut up," responses from both Victor and Kyle. Lisa insisted she was certain about loving me, just scared of messing everything up. I pointed out that she already had. The conversation continued for hours. There were tears, heated words, especially between Kyle and Chris, and difficult truths. We rehashed old wounds and uncovered new ones. Around midnight, when everyone was emotionally exhausted, we reached the inevitable conclusion. The wedding was off. Our 5-year relationship had run its course. It wasn't a screaming match or a dramatic exit. It was a mutual recognition that something fundamental had broken between us. Trust. Maybe it could be rebuilt eventually, but not in time for a December wedding. Not with Mark still working at Lisa's company. Not with the echo of that joke still hanging between us. Kyle drove me back to Lena's place afterward, assuring me this didn't change my relationship with him or Victor. According to him, I was still family to them, regardless of what happened with Lisa. When I got back to Lena's apartment, I sat on the pull-out couch in the dark, letting the reality wash over me. 5 years gone. Wedding, canceled. Future, unknown. I made a list in the Notes app on my phone. Call venue to cancel, deposit probably gone. Return ring. Contact guests. Move out of apartment. Change relationship status on social media. It was past 2 a.m. when Lena shuffled out from her bedroom. She'd heard me come in and wanted to check if I was okay. When I told her the wedding was off, She simply sat beside me on the pullout and put her arm around my shoulders. We sat like that until sunrise, not saying much, just existing in the strangeness of my new reality. This morning, I woke up to a text from Lisa asking if we could meet to discuss practical matters, the apartment lease, separating our finances, what to do with the furniture we bought together. So adult, so final. I also had a message from Emma, asking when she should come over to help pack my things. My sister, always practical, and one from my dad, who had somehow heard through the grapevine, probably from one of my cousins who follows Kyle on Instagram, and wanted to know if he should cancel his flight for the wedding. The ring feels heavy on my finger now. I've been twisting it absently, a nervous habit I didn't realize I had. It's a simple design, a round diamond in a white gold setting. Nothing flashy or elaborate. Lisa had chosen it because it was classic, like our relationship. The irony isn't lost on me. I called the venue this morning. The coordinator was sympathetic but firm. The deposit is non-refundable this close to the date. $8,000 down the drain. Money we'd saved for over a year, cutting back on vacations, new clothes, and dinners out. The practical side of me winces at the waste. The emotional side doesn't care about money right now. Kyle texted that he'd found a photographer who might be willing to transfer our deposit to another event in the future. Victor offered to help contact family members about the cancellation to spare me the awkward conversations. Small kindnesses in the aftermath. Chris, unsurprisingly, sent a non-apology text about how these things happen for a reason and how I'd find someone better suited eventually. I deleted it without responding. Mark sent a short message expressing his regret about the situation and assuring me again that nothing happened between them. Strangely enough, I believe him. He seems like collateral damage in this mess, a convenient projection of Lisa's fears and Chris's manipulation. The hardest part is the mundane reminders. The wedding planning binder's still sitting in my tote bag. The shared Spotify playlist we'd been building for the reception. The honeymoon research folder on my laptop. Little pieces of a future that no longer exists. Lena suggested I take a mental health day from work, but I decided to go in. Sitting at home, scrolling through Reddit and overthinking everything, seemed worse than the distraction of answering phones and filing insurance claims. My coworkers have been mercifully normal. Either they don't know yet, or they're politely pretending not to notice my puffy eyes and absent engagement ring. I'm meeting Lisa tomorrow at a coffee shop to exchange keys and discuss the apartment. She's agreed to move out since my name is on the lease, and she can stay with her cousin temporarily. Another practical conversation in the business of dismantling a relationship. Part of me still can't believe this is happening. Last month, we were debating reception songs and testing cake flavors. Now we're dividing up kitchen appliances and deciding who keeps the PlayStation. I keep thinking about something Victor said at the dinner. Endings are rarely clean or perfect. Most of the time, they're messy and sad and complicated. He would know. He rebuilt his life after Lisa's mother left, raised 2 kids alone, and eventually found happiness again. Looking at him now, you'd never guess he went through something so painful. Maybe there's hope in that. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. Tomorrow, I'll handle the apartment and finances. Next week, I'll start looking for my own place. The future beyond that is blurry, but it exists. Kyle just texted to ask if I want to meet for coffee this weekend. He mentioned that his family friend, Karen, an older woman who's known their family forever, offered her vacation cabin if I need a getaway to clear my head. The support from Lisa's family is unexpected but deeply appreciated. I haven't decided if I'll take Karen up on her offer. Part of me wants to escape somewhere quiet to process everything. Another part knows I need my support system right now. Lena with her practical compassion, Emma with her protective big sister energy, even Victor and Kyle with their complicated loyalty. Lisa moved out of our shared apartment within a week of our breakup. Emma and Lena helped me pack up her things while she was at work, leaving them neatly labeled in the living room for her to collect. It was surreal, separating 5 years of shared existence into hers and mine. The coffee maker she got for her birthday, the throw blanket I bought on our weekend trip to that little mountain town, the framed photos we hung on every wall. The apartment felt hollow afterward, like a stage set rather than a home. I lasted 2 more weeks there before the lease manager agreed to let me break the contract with an extra month's payment. It was worth the money to escape the ghost of our relationship that lingered in every room. Finding a new place was harder than expected. The rental market is brutal right now, and my budget as a single person is considerably tighter. I ended up in a smaller 1-bedroom across town, further from work, but with a tiny balcony where I've started growing herbs in dollar store pots. The basil keeps dying, but the mint is thriving against all odds. I choose to see that as symbolic. Financially, it's been an adjustment. Our shared expenses were suddenly all on me. Car insurance, streaming services, even groceries seem more expensive when you're cooking for one. I've become that person who uses coupons and buys store brands, tracks expenses in a spreadsheet, and thinks twice before ordering takeout. Grown-up stuff I never thought I'd have to learn at 29. The wedding vendors were surprisingly understanding. The venue kept our deposit but sent a kind note hoping I'd find happiness. The florist refunded half our payment despite their no-refund policy. The DJ recommended his sister, who works at a therapy center, an unexpected but thoughtful gesture. The engagement ring sits in my dresser drawer in its original box. Lisa said I should keep it or sell it, that it was bad karma for her to take it back. I haven't decided what to do with it yet. Some days, I forget it's there. Other days, I open the box and stare at it, wondering how something so small could have represented such big promises. Social media was its own special hell. I waited 2 weeks before changing my relationship status, dreading the flood of questions. When I finally did it, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, the notifications poured in anyway. Well-meaning friends with their what happened? Messages, distant relatives offering prayers, former classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly sliding into my DMs with faux concern that felt more like curiosity. I posted a brief, vague statement about mutual decisions and requesting privacy, then muted notifications and threw my phone across the couch. Later, I posted a single photo of my new apartment keys with the caption "New Beginnings." It got fewer likes than my engagement announcement, but felt more genuine somehow. Now about Lisa. We've spoken a handful of times since the breakup, mostly about practical matters. Mail that came to the wrong address, the shared cloud storage account we forgot to separate, returning a borrowed air fryer to her brother. Each conversation has been civil but strained, like acquaintances forced to make small talk in an elevator. She's still working at the same company, still friends with Paula, though Kyle tells me they've had some falling out recently. Still living at her cousin's place, according to the grapevine, aka Kyle. The situation with Mark got awkward after our breakup. He requested a transfer to a different team and has been cold toward her since learning the full story. The biggest surprise came last month when Lisa texted, asking if we could meet. We hadn't seen each other face to face since the key exchange at the apartment, and part of me was curious about what she wanted. We met at a coffee shop near my new place, neutral territory with plenty of witnesses, as Kyle half-jokingly suggested. She looked different, thinner, with darker circles under her eyes, wearing a sweater I didn't recognize. The first 10 minutes were stilted, small talk about work and the weather. Then she pulled out a journal. "I've been seeing someone," she said. My heart did a weird little stutter before she clarified, "A therapist." The journal was part of her therapy, daily reflections on patterns and behaviors she wanted to change. She'd been examining her relationship with her mother, her friendship with Paula, and the way she treated me. She didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation. She just wanted me to know she was working on herself. I should have done this years ago, she admitted. Maybe things would have been different. It was the most self-aware I'd ever seen her, and I found myself genuinely hoping therapy would help. Not for my sake. That ship had sailed, but because carrying around that much unresolved family trauma seemed exhausting. Before we parted ways, she mentioned she'd heard I was still close with her dad and brother. "I'm glad," she said. "They need good people in their lives." That's been one of the strangest parts of this breakup, maintaining relationships with Lisa's family while disconnecting from her. Victor texts me weekly, usually sending funny memes or updates about his garden. Kyle and I have breakfast every other Sunday at this little diner halfway between our apartments. They've been careful not to put me in uncomfortable positions or share too much about Lisa, respecting the boundaries I've set. As for me personally, I'd like to say I've had some profound awakening, that I've found myself through this heartbreak. The reality is messy, eh? Some days, I feel liberated, relieved that I didn't marry someone who could hurt me so carelessly. Other days, usually when my hot water heater acts up or I can't reach something on the top shelf that Lisa would have grabbed for me, I miss the practical comforts of partnership. I've started therapy too, not because of the breakup specifically, but because it made me realize how much I'd compromised myself in that relationship. How many red flags I'd ignored because they came wrapped in the comfort of familiarity. How much of myself I'd set aside to make room for Lisa's needs and insecurities. My therapist suggested I reclaim some parts of myself that got lost along the way. I've resumed hiking on Saturday mornings, something I'd stopped doing because Lisa always complained about early wake-ups on weekends. Dating again feels like a distant concept, though my colleagues have started making noises about setting me up with this great woman they know. I'm not ready. Maybe in a few more months. Maybe longer. Right now, I'm still learning how to be comfortable in my own company. The most unexpected thing came from what should have been the saddest task, canceling our honeymoon. We had booked a 10-day trip to the coast, renting a little cottage with a deck overlooking the water. Non-refundable, of course. For weeks, I ignored the reminder in my calendar, unable to face losing that deposit too. Then Kyle suggested something radical. Take the trip anyway, by myself. You've never traveled alone, he pointed out. Maybe it's time. The idea terrified me at first. 10 days alone in a romantic cottage meant for two. It sounded like the setup for a sad indie film. But the more I thought about it, the more appealing it became. I could wake up when I wanted, explore without compromising, read an entire book in one sitting if I felt like it. So that's where I'm headed next week, to a honeymoon cottage, solo. I've packed 3 paperbacks, downloaded some podcasts, and splurged on a new pair of swim trunks that I chose entirely for comfort rather than how they look to someone else. My dad thinks I'm crazy. Ellie offered to come with me for part of the time. I declined. Victor suggested I download a dating app just to see who's out there. Maybe, but probably not. I don't know what I'll find on this non-honeymoon honeymoon. Maybe clarity. Maybe more questions. Definitely some sunburn, knowing my luck with sunscreen. The other day, I was grocery shopping when our song came on over the store speakers. 3 months ago, it would have sent me hiding in the frozen food section, fighting back tears. This time, I just felt a slight twinge, like pressing on a bruise that's mostly healed. Progress, not perfection. I'm not going to pretend I've got everything figured out. My new apartment's shower has mysterious temperature fluctuations. I killed another basil plant yesterday. I still occasionally grab my phone to text Lisa about something funny before remembering. We don't do that anymore. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.